The United Kingdom is ready to deploy F-35 fighter jets to Ukraine. The British Prime Minister has put SIS on high alert for the war in Ukraine. Meanwhile, the US will hold another round of ceasefire talks with Ukrainian and Russian delegation. So how does the UK prepare to enter the war in Ukraine, and what will be discussed in Saudi Arabia this week? British Prime Minister Keir Starmer took in a separate talks at Northwood, led by Lieutenant General Nick Perry, head of the joint operations, along with more than 30 countries who met to discuss how a coalition of the willing could help Ukraine. Starmer has already promised to send British troops to Ukraine if US President Trump successfully negotiates a peace deal with Russian dictator Putin. A senior Royal Air Force source told The Telegraph that the meeting discussed air cover, as if British soldiers were to enter Ukraine, there would be a need for cover from above. The Royal Air Force will provide either Typhoons or American F-35 for the deployment to Ukraine. According to The Telegraph, the uncertainty over whether the US would provide air cover to Ukraine has made it necessary for the UK to take the lead. Trump has said that he would not provide any military support and has called on Europe to shoulder more on the burden of supporting Ukraine. Keir Starmer said on Thursday that military planning for the coalition of the willing was broken down into sea, air, land and borders, as well as the recovery of Ukraine. Quote, "The political momentum that we have built up is translating here into military planning and operational planning and is broadly spread across different areas." Meanwhile, British special forces have been put on high alert to deploy to Ukraine as part of the UK's peacekeeping mission, according to the eye and paper sources. Military planners tasked by the Cabinet Office with preparing the force have told special forces units to prepare to deploy to Ukraine. The UK's Military Planning Command Centre, Permanent Joint Headquarters, was giving instructions last week to begin the process of deploying personnel and assets. The UK's Ministry of Defence aims to ensure military equipment is operational. Recently, Sir Keir Starmer said he plans to deploy peacekeeping forces to Ukraine had now entered the operational phase. According to the I-Paper, peacekeeping military experts have said that UK Special Forces' ability to deploy rapidly, combined with their expertise in intelligence, makes them ideally suited to leading a coalition of the willing. I-Paper quoted also Marco Weiss, the professor of international history and security at Lancaster University. He said the unpredictability of how any ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine materializes plays into the hands of UK's flexible special forces, which can be rapidly deployed to lead a peacekeeping force. Quote, "It's very difficult at this stage, not knowing what kind of peace you need to maintain. A lot of it will be contingency planning. Things can be done quickly, and the quickest tool at 10 Downing Street disposal is the special forces. They are good in intelligence, they can operate very nimbly, liberate, protect important sites." Professor Weiss added that this would not be a traditional peace deal, but a temporary ceasefire, and any peacekeeping force could be used to enforce the conditions for attacks in the grey zone. Potential operations launched when two countries are neither at peace nor at war could require the skills that the Russian special forces have. The UK Special Forces were one of the world-class military units that would be used in the peacekeeping force for intelligence gathering, VIP protection, some training, and possibly countering Russian hybrid activity. At the same time, US President Donald Trump does not want to hear real information from his intelligence. Ukrainian soldiers in Kursk region have lost ground in recent days, but are not encircled by the Russian forces, according to CIA. As Reuters reports, US intelligence agencies, including CIA, have shared that assessment with the White House over the past week. The US and European intelligence assessments show that Ukrainian troops have faced intense pressure from Russian forces, but they are not completely surrounded. However, Trump has continued to claim that Ukrainian troops are surrounded in western Russia's Kursk region. In a social media post on March 14th, Trump says that he had asked the Russian president to spare the lives of thousands of Ukrainians who, he said, were completely surrounded and vulnerable. Putin says that he would do so if they're surrounded. Trump repeated the claim about encircled Ukrainian forces during a speech at Washington's Kennedy Center on Monday and in a Fox News interview on Tuesday. Also, US President Trump says that Ukraine and the United States will very soon conclude an agreement on critical mineral resources. Trump says that he has signed an executive order to significantly increase the extraction of critical minerals and rare earth metals. Quote, "This is very important for our country, and as you know, we are also signing agreements in various places to unblock the rare earths and minerals and many other things around the world, including Ukraine." Moreover, according to Financial Times, the Trump administration is seeking new terms for U.S. access to critical minerals and energy assets in Ukraine, expanding its economic demands on Ukraine. Washington wants Kyiv to agree to detailed provisions on who owns and controls a joint investment fund, as well as broader scopes that could potentially include U.S. ownership of other economic assets such as nuclear power plants in Ukraine. Ukrainian officials said that they were concerned that they were being pressured to negotiate unfavorable terms in a broader deal, especially after Washington temporarily suspended arms sales and intelligence in Ukraine. However, President Zelensky denied that he had discussed with Donald Trump the possibility of transferring the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant or other nuclear power plants to the United States. Meanwhile, U.S. President's special envoy Kit Kellogg said that representatives of Ukraine and Russia during the talks in Saudi Arabia may sit in different rooms, and the American delegation will walk between them. Kellogg said this in an interview with ABC News. According to Trump's envoy, the United States will be represented at the talks in Saudi Arabia by U.S. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and from U.S. Department of State, the head of policy planning Michael Anton. Quote, "This will be indirect discussions. That is, one group will be in this room, the other in that, and this will sit and talks, walk back and forth, something like shuttle diplomacy." A Sky News source in the Ukrainian authorities also describes the talks in Saudi Arabia in a similar way. In general, the concept of the Americans is that they are talking to the Russians and the Ukrainians at the same time in different rooms and will walk between meetings and rooms. The final format of the negotiations has not yet been determined, but it is not planned that the Ukrainians and Russians will conduct direct negotiations. Meanwhile, Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan said that Turkey is ready to participate in the deployment of peacekeeping forces in Ukraine if the parties agree to create such a mission to resolve the war. This is reported by Anadolu. Quote, "An agreement that both parties agree to is important for us. We are ready to make our contribution, but most of the discussions now concern security guarantees." The Turkish foreign minister clarifies that Ankara is considering the possibility of participating in the peacekeeping mission only on the decision and agreed decision between Ukraine and Russia. He stressed that Turkey will not be a part of initiatives that will be imposed on one of the parties. Earlier sources in the Turkish Ministry of Defense said that the country is considering the option of joining a possible peacekeeping mission in Ukraine after the ceasefire deal. That's all for today. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and glory to Ukraine.